Over the last couple of days, Sean McVay, there were stories coming out that he was going to leave the Rams and maybe sit down with Amazon, because Amazon's going to have the football games on where you can actually buy the games and watch the games on Amazon. And McVay was asked to be a broadcaster. And they were supposedly the numbers were coming out that he was going to be offered 5 years, $100 million, which would be, I think, the most ever by a broadcaster. It really is. Now, Troy Aikman obviously took a contract to move away from Fox, which I was very surprised, and he's heading over there to ESPN. But ESPN is trying to build their brand back up again because the brand is completely faltered, overpaying certain broadcasters that shouldn't be making it.
Yeah.
And then other broadcasters that were let go for no damn reason. I think it's horrible what's gone on with ESPN. But, this is the name of the game, and you're going to have to understand it's a make-or-break business, and if you're not a commodity to these people, they're going to let you go. But it's very interesting when you look at where football is going this offseason. With all these players that are going to be available, this is probably the best free agency market we've seen in a very long time. I would say in the last 10 years. You have a lot of great players that are going to be available. Offensive linemen, defensive backs, a safety, defensive linemen. There are a tremendous amount of players, and the money that could be handed out to these players are remarkably crazy. With the CBA going up a little bit more this year, there will be a little bit more money to spend, but there are a lot of teams over the cap. We talk about the Rams. They're over the cap for another year. The Cowboys will be over the cap for another year. Now, the Cowboys could be trading away pieces. Amari Cooper could be on his way out. It's still going to hurt their cap. They could decide not to re-sign Van Der Esch and let him go to free agency, which more than likely could happen. Lawrence is probably on his way out. They're going to let him go. They're going to have to get rid of a lot of pieces. And this team was a borderline championship-built team last year. I know Dak Prescott came back in the second half of the season. He didn't look as good as he did in the first half, maybe because of his ankle injury that he had in one of the games before the second half. I don't know what it was. But the fact is, you can't pinpoint what the Cowboys are going to do in the offseason and how they're going to move forward and make this team even better than they were last year. But you talk about these New York teams. The Giants have new management. They have new coaching now. This is a completely different team. They're going to have a different defensive coordinator, offensive coordinator, different coach. You're bringing in a different GM, a different thought of where this team is going. Mara and Tisch, they're going to take a step back even more this year because over the last couple of years, they've had more of their 2 cents, more dig deep into this team, and it hasn't worked. It really hasn't. They brought in Dave Gettleman because he's been a part of the organization. It didn't work. The Giants for years have brought in guys that were a part or were former parts of the organization. Dable is not a part of the Giants organization. He never was. Now, he has coaches that have been, the Bill Belichicks of the world. Obviously, he has an understanding of where and what this team is all about as an organization. And then you bring in a young guy like Joe Shane, a young guy. He's been a good assistant executive over there in Buffalo. He helped Buffalo rebuild that team that became a Super Bowl contender. Now the Giants are hoping he could do the same with this team and rebuild a mess that they have over there. They're way over the salary cap. They gave Kenny Golladay a $70-some-odd million contract last year. They got to decide what they're doing with Saquon Barkley. Are they keeping him? Are they trading him? They don't know where their quarterback position is going to. Are they drafting a quarterback in a non-drafting quarterback draft? I don't know. I don't think they're going to. And if they do, it's going to be in the later rounds. Are they going to go after a free agent? Are they going to go after a guy that could be a trade piece like Russell Wilson? Kyler Murray, if he becomes available from Arizona. I don't know what the Giants are going to do, but this is a completely different realm for the New York Giants because if you look at what the Giants have done in the past, especially in the last 30, 40 years, they've brought in coaches that have been a part of the organizations. They brought GMs in that have been a part of the organization. This is a completely different realm. So the Giants are starting to move to another point of where they believe this organization should be moving in.
Well, they're going to have quite a challenge. They're right now $11.5 million over the salary cap. Kenny Galladay's contract is untradeable, so they're going to try to do other things. Saquon Barkley has definitely been a name brought up. He was brought up during the trade deadline as well, and there will be teams that definitely are going to want to take a chance on his upside for a running back. Now, the Giants are not going to get a first, probably not even a second-round pick. They might get a third because he's still young and he's talented, but that's probably it at the rate they're going at with these injuries, and there will be a team that will end up taking a chance on him. James Bradbury is another one that they've talked about dangling as well, and teams are going to be looking for a corner. Now, he's regressed from what he was in 2020 and his last year with the Panthers, where he's more of kind of thought of as a low-end number one corner, but teams are going to be still looking for corners. You need corner depth, you need secondary depth to win in today's NFL, and teams are definitely going to be looking for that. Other ones I would consider looking at to move as well. You're not going to get much for him, but the Giants do have other young linebackers now, so Blake Martinez could be another contract they try to move. He has been very injury-prone since he's gotten there, but still has been one of the best run stoppers in the league when he is healthy. So a team might want to take a chance on them if they need a run defense. Teams like the Chargers that had a terrible run defense last year, maybe that's something they go after. So the Giants are going to have to try to shed all these contracts, and Joe Schoen is going to build, hopefully, from the book that Brandon Beane did, where he really purged a lot of bad contracts in Buffalo when he first got there too, and stuck to their rebuild. He didn't go after the fluke playoff season in 9-7 where nobody expected the Bills to make the playoffs in 2017. They still stuck to that rebuild, got rid of a lot of veterans and drafted very well, filled a lot of the holes when they needed to. Look at the Bills now. They really don't have a lot of holes, so hopefully they could bring the same thing to the Giants.
I think when you look at the other team playing in the same stadium, the Jets, I think the Jets are thinking and believing that Zach Wilson's going to take a leap from last year. A lot of the players that have been a part of the team and the growth of this kid this year believe that this kid is going to be the real deal. If you listen to LaDainian Tomlinson on the NFL Network, they asked LaDainian Tomlinson, who has been an NFL superior running back, a Hall of Famer. LaDainian Tomlinson said that Zach Wilson will take the biggest leap out of any of these young quarterbacks this coming year. I think a lot because Joe Douglas is going to rebuild this offense and put this offense in a good position. And Elijah Moore, who would have been a 1,000-yard player this year, he had 5 touchdowns, and he was just getting better and better and better. He had 5 touchdowns. I mean, Jalen Waddle, he played in more games and only had 6 touchdowns and only had 300 more yards or something like that. Jalen Waddle, who was a bigger and a top 10 pick, Jalen Waddle didn't have as good a season as Elijah Moore. So Elijah Moore, who fell to the second round, I think he could be a number one for the Jets. I don't think the Jets are going to believe that until he plays a full season. He proves it. So what do the Jets do in the offseason at the wide receiving position is going to be very, very important. Are they going to bring in a free agent? Are they going to trade for one? But they don't want to give away pieces or draft stock, being that they have so many players that they can draft in this year's draft where it's not going to cost them money for about 4 to 5 years, where they can really position themselves to really rebuild this and structure this team into a championship team every single year or a playoff team every single year where you have a chance to play and win. So they have the understanding of what the picture needs to be and what the picture should be for this organization that hasn't been for 50 years. So hopefully Zach Wilson transitions into the player. Maybe breaking up with his girlfriend before the season was over will help his understanding and studying. But I think Zach Wilson's a studier. He loves the game. And if you listen to every single player that's been on a team, the guy is more dedicated to the game and understanding the game than anybody they've ever seen. And you're talking about veterans that have seen this guy watch more video and more clips of games than any quarterback they've ever seen. So I think Zach Wilson has the understanding of what it is and what it needs to be great. And I think he will be that one way or another, either next year or the year after.
I can't see a circumstance for the New York Jets where they trade any of their first-round picks just because I think they have to get a pass rusher with one of those picks. Whether they do it with 10 or whether they do it with 4, I think they're going to still try to get a pass rusher. You're mentioning the rumors they probably are going to take Kyle Hamilton at number 4 or Evan
Which
Neal.
I've heard a lot of stories, and I was one of them. I don't want another safety, but if you watch the video of what this guy, Kyle Hamilton, could do on the field, not only as safety, but a slot corner, a guy that can intercept the ball, can change the momentum of a game. A lot of people believe, could be a leader of a defense and could be the backbone of a defense. So now I would say if the Jets drafted Kyle Hamilton at 4, I wouldn't be upset.
Right. Now, the point I was getting at is if they do that, maybe they go with Karlaftis at 10, or they trade back and draft a Jermaine Johnson or David Ojabo. The point I'm trying to get at is the veteran pass rushers are taking up most of the free agency, where I think the Jets maybe the way Joe Douglas has molded this team could afford to maybe sign one veteran pass rusher to go alongside Carl Lawson, and then they draft another young pass rusher that could be more of a full-time player if one of these old guys can't play all the snaps. So I don't think they'll trade a first-round pick for a wide receiver. I think a second-round pick or even packaging Denzel Mims with a third-round pick makes a lot more sense. Now, in terms of the trade recipients, DK Metcalf and Calvin Ridley are the two main guys. I know a lot of Jets fans want DK Metcalf.
I don't want him.
I worry about him being a scheme fit just because he's not a world-class route runner. Like, he's a fine route runner, but that's not his strength. I think Calvin Ridley would fit more in that mold because he's a much better route runner. And you saw this year, guys that weren't great route runners. Denzel Mims had to develop as a route runner, which they never really gave him a chance to do that. Corey Davis, not a great route runner, does not fit, obviously, with this Jets team and had a rough year, especially with drops as well this year. And they had to really limit him to those short routes because of that. If you're not a good route runner and not a good motion player, you worry about that kind of thing in this Jets scheme. So I think Ridley would be a better fit if they go after that. But they could even draft a receiver, too. And if that's the case, they're going to want to keep those second-round picks, draft somebody later.
They might
like
trade
that.
down at 10 to get a wide receiver where they could get another first round in the future. I've heard Pittsburgh is trying to move up to 10. If Pittsburgh moves up to 10, they're drafting at 20. Just like the Giants, they can get an extra first-round draft pick in 2023. They still get their 2 first-round draft picks this year. They still get the 2 players that they want, and then they have another 2 first-round draft picks next year where they can value wheeling and dealing next year. Joe Douglas could really position this team to be very, very dangerous and a drafting commodity team moving forward for many, many years to come. And having that high top 10 pick sitting there at 10 where a team wants a quarterback or wants a certain particular player that they believe can get them over the hump next year, well, the Jets have the golden ticket. So I think they're positioned very well.
With all those second and third round picks, if they even don't get the receiver then, they might even trade back into the first round to get a receiver or something like that. Because there's a lot of receiving depth, not really for the top part of the draft, but that middle first round pick into the second round. There's a lot of talented players from Drake London to Garrett Wilson to Treylon Burks. Jamison Williams is going to fall because of his injury, so maybe the Jets get him in the second round if he's still there. Because remember, the Panthers pick is right near the Jets, so it's practically a first round pick, and they could trade back in. And Seattle's pick, and then they got the extra third and the extra fourth from Minnesota too with the Chris Herndon trade. So they have all different options that they could go for where they don't have to really go for position specific. But there's also better free agent wide receivers too that they could go after too. Whereas comparison to the pass rushers, they could still get somebody young and maybe affordable to the extent that Joe Douglas likes for the longevity.
I believe the Jets are put in a position where they can absolutely value some of their picks and move some of their picks and still get a huge value, a huge bulk back for next year's draft where, again, I believe the Jets could put themselves in a very good position to do whatever they want next year as well. So Joe Douglas has done well in his first 2 drafts. I know a lot of people say his first one was but he still added Mekhi Beckham, who before the season started, he was a top 6 tackle. And everybody keeps saying, get rid of him, trade him. I think they're out of their damn minds. If he's healthy this year and he's in shape, he's going to be a huge, huge growth picture of what this team could be offensively. Obviously, Elijah Vera Tucker could be an all-pro player in the future, and then Mekhi Beckham could be an all-pro player. We've seen what the Jets have done when they've had 2 all-pro players on their roster. DeBrickashaw Ferguson and Nick Mangold.
And now Elijah Vera Tucker represents the modern mold of a type of guard that you need, especially in that heavy motion offense that Mike LaFleur is going to bring there at its peak. Once those guys can move, downfield block, screen block, those are the modern mold of today's guards, too. And Elijah Vera Tucker, the way he's going,
one of the best
could rise into possibly the best in the league, the way he's going.
He's fast, he's big, he's strong. He can do a lot of things that other guards can't do. And you can even move him to the tackle position on the other side. You could do a lot of things with Elijah Vera Tucker. So the Jets are doing the things that they need to do. And who knows, maybe at 4, if Neal falls to the Jets, maybe the Jets say, you know what, let's solidify our offensive line. We still have the 10th pick. We could still trade out of that 10th pick, and we could still get a player that we want, a pass rusher, sometime in the mid first round or maybe late first round. So they're positioned to do very, very well in this year's draft, and I expect them to do nothing but the best for this organization moving forward.